Explore the unofficial world of DPRK-inspired apparel at NK News Shop. Dive into a captivating collection of North Korea-themed t-shirts, hoodies, and more at the NK News Shop. From the popular Daedonggang beer t-shirts to the adventurous Air Koryo designs, each piece offers a unique glimpse into aspects of the DPRK you'll be familiar with. Featuring retro travel-inspired prints of Pyongyang's landmarks and brands, our apparel is 100% handcrafted in the USA. Support independent journalism with every purchase. Explore our range today at shop.nknews.org. That's shop.nknews.org. Hello, listeners, and welcome to the NK News Podcast. I'm your host, Jacko Zwetsloot. Today it is Tuesday, the 11th of June, and I'm joined here in the studio by Ifang Bremer. Ifang, welcome back on the show.
Yes, good morning.
We've got lots to talk about. North Korea's been keeping us busy the last week with balloons and loudspeakers on both sides. Where do you want to start?
When you say balloons and loudspeakers, that kind of sounds like a party, but
it should be fun. Or a children's party, anyway. Yeah, so North Korea sent more balloons with trash.
Yes, so I mean, when was the first North Korean balloon trash?
Hey, I asked the questions.
Right, okay.
But I want to say, let's say 3 to 4 weeks ago.
Okay, yeah. So then on Thursday, a new cycle of balloons started. So to take you back a little bit, so North Korea started sending trash balloons in response to South Korean-based activists who sent balloons with anti-North Korean leaflets.
Mm-hmm. Is that Pak Sang-hak?
Yes, that's mainly Pak Sang-hak.
Some of those balloons of his actually ended up in North Korea. I understand that he doesn't have a very high success rate, but some of them did end up in North Korea.
Exactly, and Kim Jong Un hates that. He hates balloons, anything coming from South Korea. So on Thursday, even though North Korea started sending their own trash balloons, Pak Sang-hak again sent balloons towards the north. So that happened on Thursday. On Sunday, North Korea answered that with another couple dozen balloons. And then that same day, South Korea restarted its propaganda broadcasts.
Right.
So you have to imagine these are gigantic loudspeakers aimed at the north.
Yeah.
Positioned at several spots along the inter-Korean border. And on Sunday, South Korea, for the first time in years, did a test.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember they started this, I think, when Park Geun-hye was president, after the two South Korean soldiers were injured by the mines. So I think in 2015 they started that again. Then they ended it when Moon Jae-in was president, if I'm not mistaken. So it's been a few years since we've had it here, but now South Korea's set up the giant arrays of loudspeakers, camouflage green, sort of olive green colored loudspeakers, and they've tested them, but they haven't yet fully started the broadcast or the playing of music and information to North Korea. That's my understanding.
Yeah, so they did a test on Sunday, and this kind of sounds like a radio broadcast. You have a weather report of North Korea, but also the price of consumer goods in North Korea will be broadcasted, mixed up with some K-pop. All kinds of interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
And we just saw a video from South Korea's Ministry of National Defense that these speakers are not just static, they're also mounted on trucks.
So they can be moved around.
Yeah, they now have these trucks that they can move to any spot on the border.
Right.
And you will see these soldiers, and they have this remote control, and gigantic speakers will be erected from the truck. So they're kind of like, going up.
Right.
So they're mobile speakers as well.
And depending on where you turn those loudspeakers on, they can be heard quite some distance into North Korea. In some of those places near the border, there's a lot of flat plains, and that sound can carry for some distance into North Korea.
Yeah, and of course it depends on weather conditions,
right.
Wind direction as well. But presumably, according to South Korea's Ministry of Defense, it can reach up to several kilometers, way beyond the front line, potentially reaching also North Korean villages.
Oh, I see.
And this is, of course, something that Kim Jong Un really doesn't want, because any kind of threat to the information monopoly by the state is a big threat to Kim.
Yeah, right. And in fact, the last time South Korea did this, North Korea threatened to shoot those loudspeakers, didn't it?
I mean, I think they also shot some rounds back in 2015.
Right. I don't think they actually destroyed any loudspeakers, but
No.
they did try to, and they made it clear that they were very, very angry about it. So, but now I understand this time around, North Korea is setting up its own loudspeakers to compete.
Yeah, so yesterday, quite late during the day here in South Korea, we received information from the ROK military that North Korea is also restoring loudspeakers in response to South Korea's propaganda test broadcast. They haven't been operating just yet, but this is very fresh. So this is late on Monday. Today, we're talking. Today is Tuesday. Definitely some new development could happen. But interestingly, South Korean media was citing an anonymous government source that they're not expecting North Korea to broadcast any anti-South Korean propaganda, but more likely it'll be noise to block out any South Korean broadcasting, because they want to prevent any villagers or soldiers from hearing that.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's a little bit like in the 1990s when I lived very close to the border with North Korea, and I was able to pick up a North Korean TV signal on my television, but it was mixed with the South Korean jamming signal that the South Korean military broadcast on the same frequency to try to block that North Korean frequency. So you would see an unclear picture from North Korea together with the jamming signal. So this is basically a kind of a crude way of North Korea trying to jam the South Korean propaganda is by playing its own messaging or its own noise, white noise perhaps, into the air to sort of block or at least muddle the sound so much that North Koreans can't hear that. I certainly, in that situation, I would not want to be living anywhere near the demilitarized zone in North Korea, because that might give you quite a headache hour after hour of competing loudspeaker noise.
Yeah, I mean, it's I can't really imagine if you have a speaker that can reach several kilometers, how loud that must be.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a strange thought, but I also thought about the wildlife in the DMZ.
Yes. Yep, that's right.
There's a very diverse wildlife there who might be quite surprised getting suddenly sandwiched in between inter-Korean speaker broadcasts.
Well, and potentially traumatized, I suppose, right? I mean, just as an example there, in the Netherlands every year when they have the fireworks on the last day of the year, that can be quite difficult for animals, pet animals, to stand, right? Dogs and cats can look for places to hide when they hear the sounds of the fireworks being let off. And in the same situation here, I suppose, if you have a bass noise coming, you can really feel that, and that might make animals run away and have accidents.
Yeah, so lots of interesting things happening. We're not yet seeing this develop in any kind of kinetic military action.
Right, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing, but that is obviously what everyone here is worried about.
The threat is never far behind.
Yeah, because these are very quick developments, you know.
Yep.
This is every day there's something new happening.
Yep.
First it's a balloon, then it's a loudspeaker, then it's a North Korean loudspeaker.
And then it's mobile loudspeakers.
It's mobile loudspeakers.
You can imagine North Korea is trying to block it, and then South Korea is going to move it to 100 meters to the left or to the right to try to broadcast it there, and then North Korea is going to move its loudspeaker arrays, and it's going to be terrible.
Yeah, so I think the biggest risk right now is human error and any kind of miscalculation, overly emotional response on either side, not really thought through actions. So rather than the loudspeakers, it's the rapid pace of developments right now that make it quite worrisome.
Yeah, and for anybody flying out or into Korean airspace, those balloons can affect air traffic, so that could be a concern too.
Yeah, they can delay your flight. It's happened already. Yeah.
Coming back to the balloons for a moment there, I've been very curious to see what North Korea might be sending over. I'm always interested in those propaganda leaflets, but it seems that this time they really are just sending 100% trash, and not even interesting trash, because, as we know here at NK News, Chad and others have analyzed North Korean garbage and looking at product information. But a lot of the stuff that came over the last weekend, at least as reported by South Korean media, was Chinese product packaging and Chinese paper, or rather paper with Chinese language printed on it. So there was nothing interesting from North Korea, nothing that you could learn about North Korean society or the commercial world from that trash.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's also a conscious decision.
I think it is quite a deliberate choice that North Korea is determined not to let information about life inside North Korea slip out. So it's happy to send as much Chinese trash as possible.
Yeah, and also blank leaflets, just white papers. We also saw those falling on Seoul.
Oh, okay, I haven't seen any of those yet. Blank leaflets. Wow, that's what a wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
Now, there's also something else going on inside the demilitarized zone that you reported on as an NK News exclusive last week. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so this started in May when I visited the inter-Korean border all the way on the east side. And I was at the Gosong Observatory looking into North Korea and with a big zoom lens.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw North Korean soldiers on the side of a mountain doing something, and I checked it with satellite imagery, and I noticed that there used to be vegetation on that part of the mountain and not anymore. So that got my curiosity going. What are they building there? It turned out that the last month, and I noticed because satellite imagery updates every day, they started clearing a big section of this mountain that's overlooking the border with the south. So then at the time I wrote a story about it. It's basically, it looks like a path. So you have I'm not sure if all our listeners know what the DMZ looks like, but you have a North Korean fence. Then you have the military demarcation line, which marks the middle of the DMZ. And then you'll have a South Korean fence.
Yep.
So you basically have three lines. So North Korea started building beyond its final fence deep into the DMZ. At least at the east side. And then my colleague Collins Worko suggested me to check along all of the Korean border where there are more of these developments. And then I found that indeed at 6 locations along the inter-Korean border, spread from east all the way to the west side, there are such constructions going on the North Korean side. So basically stripping land, clearing trees, likely demining parts of the border to potentially create either a new fence or new pathways very close to the military demarcation line. So this is quite a significant development because it's very uncommon in recent years that either side is doing extensive construction inside DMZ. This is a heavily mined area. Obviously, any kind of construction there is very dangerous. And we're not entirely sure what North Korea is doing there. South Korea's Ministry of National Defense declined to comment on my questions. They must have their eyes on it too.
I'm absolutely sure they do. What about the United Nations Command?
The United Nations Command did give me a response. They were a little bit more forthcoming, and they said that North Korea has been hardening its boundaries along the border. So it's still quite vague, but that kind of suggests that UNC thinks that these are border defenses. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. It's yet to be seen if there will be any kind of weaponry placed on those spots. If that's the case, it will be very clear violation of
the Armistice Agreement.
The Armistice Agreement, yeah.
Well, is there any suggestion that North Korea may have crossed over the military demarcation line in any of these activities?
So, of all the 6 spots that I've analyzed, I saw one spot where North Korea seems to very slightly, by a couple of meters, cross the military demarcation line. This is in the middle of the border near Choron. So, yeah, and in other instances, they're coming awfully close to the military demarcation line. One other theory is that a couple months ago, Kim Jong Un said that North Korea will reassess the boundaries of the country, the borders of the country. So,
now, but okay, you're looking at satellite photography of the demilitarized zone. Now, the United Nations, the Armistice Agreement between North Korea and the Chinese People's Volunteers and the United Nations Command, that has a second volume which contains very detailed maps that show exactly where the military demarcation line is at every point from east to west across the peninsula. So if North Korea is doing things across there, you would imagine there would be some kind of an investigation, that the UN command would go in to the demilitarized zone from the southern side, perhaps with some people from the Neutral Nation Supervisory Commission to look at exactly where the North Koreans are and have they crossed the military demarcation line as it is shown on the maps rather than on satellite photographs. Is there any sign that there is an investigation ongoing at this stage?
At least not publicly. I was quite surprised how, mild, I'd say the response was from both, South Korea didn't reply at all to my questions, but UNC as well. They said, we're not seeing any buildup of troops, so therefore, we're not seeing any extremely risky situation at the moment. That was kind of the gist of what they were saying. Well, to me, it still seems quite significant. Yeah, you literally have soldiers building beyond the final fence. I'm quite surprised that South Korean media did not really pick up on this, and that also South Korean Ministry of Defense didn't really feel inclined to comment on this. Yeah, I mean, earlier this year, North Korean leader Kim Jong Un ordered officials to redefine North Korea's borders as part of its policy change, rejecting peaceful reunification with the South, emphasizing the two Koreas are at war. So in that light, I think any kind of development happening right on the border, we should definitely keep a close eye on it.
Although it should be pointed out that clearing of vegetation within the demilitarized zone is something that's been done by both sides over the decades.
Of course, and that in itself, from my understanding, is not a violation of the Armistice Agreement.
Right.
But if you look at the satellite imagery, and you can see this on our website, the way that they're clearing this vegetation, they're not just patches, they're connected pieces of land in the same shape as their border fences at the moment. So what you'll see is this big patch of green, which are all trees, and you'll have a line, sand-colored line, crossing right through it, following the demarcation line. So it's not just simply to clear the view. It's definitely either going to be a fence being built there or a pathway for soldiers to walk on.
Good point. Okay, let's give our listeners the title of that story that you wrote on the clearing of vegetation and possible building in the demilitarized zone. What's the title of that piece?
Yeah, so if any listeners are curious, the title of the story is North Korea Clears Land at 6 Location Inside the DMZ.
Fantastic. Great reporting there. And let's keep a close eye on that and see what happens in the coming weeks and months. Thanks for coming on the show again today, Ifang.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Navigating the dynamics of the Korean Peninsula requires more than just information. It demands insight. Korea Risk Group offers strategic consulting that cuts through the noise. Our experts provide in-depth analysis, risk assessments, and bespoke reports, all tailored to your specific needs. Whether you're exploring new opportunities or managing existing challenges, our insights can be your compass. To learn more about how we can help you make informed, strategic decisions, visit korearisk.com/solutions today. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our podcast episode for today. Our thanks go to Brian Betts and Alana Hill for facilitating this episode, and to our post-recording producer genius Gabby Magnuson, who cuts out all the extraneous noises, awkward silences, bodily functions, and fixes the audio levels. Thank you, and listen again next time.